Much for taking the time out of your day to do these questions with me. I can't wait to ask them. So I think I'll just get started if that's okay.
It's a pleasure, and yeah, let's get started. I had a look. They look like great questions.
Awesome. So Zoos Victoria seems to take responsibility for minimising their impact on the environment. You have a water reclamation system in Melbourne Zoo, you have banned products containing palm oil, and your organisation works at spreading the environmental message. For example, through the collection of old mobile phones and information about palm oil. Are there any other or new environmentally minded initiatives Zoos Victoria has or is planning to put in place? And why does Zoos Victoria take such a significant stance on environmental sustainability?
In terms of environmental sustainability, I'm going to start a little bit further back, which is our moral purpose, why we exist and what we're really working hard on. And at Zoos Victoria, our moral purpose is to fight extinction. We hate the thought that any single animal would go extinct, and ensuring a future rich in wildlife. And if you really want this outcome, if you want a future where other animals that are adorable or scary or just different are still on the planet, then we have to change the way we're behaving. Because really our behaviors are the problem at the moment that are pushing species nearer to the brink of extinction. And so because of that, we take this responsibility for minimizing our own impacts, but also helping other people like our visitors or community or anyone who even listens to this interview to think about how they're behaving and what impact they're making. And so all of those things you're talking about, we start off saying, first of all, are these things bad for animals? Because, we could change hundreds of behaviors, but the ones we're really interested in are the ones that are driving extinction. So you ask what's coming next? Are there new things? Well, there's a few other things you didn't mention. We have a campaign about releasing balloons outdoors, which is killing seabirds. Now, none of us would knowingly want to go and kill baby seabirds, but when we release balloons outdoor, even by accident, that can end up in the ocean and that could kill a seabird. Or we have a campaign that's called Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife, which looks at how much safer your cat is if you keep your cat indoors. So it's better for your cat and it's better for wildlife. So it's a good thing to do. We're working on 3 new campaigns. The next one you're going to love is all about coffee and how we can make sure every Melburnian's favorite drink is also sustainably sourced. We're looking at illegal wildlife trade, which is a really bad part of people catching up wildlife and sending it offshore or importing it in with diseases that can really impact on ours. And ultimately also talking a little bit about climate change. So we have quite a few campaigns going, but all of them are underpinned by that same idea.
No, they all sound really exciting. Some really catchy campaigns in there. So the orangutan is an amazing animal that is likely to become extinct in the wild within the next decade if deforestation continues at its current rate. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you're not going to be surprised to know that I don't like that at all. I really love orangutans. They're goofy, they're smart, they're funny. They do all kinds of stuff that make us just pause and really think if we're the smartest animal on the planet. There's a lot going on when an orangutan looks at you. And so the thought that in our lifetime, yours and mine, we could drive these incredible creatures to extinction through something as stupid as what we're eating, that makes no sense to me. And so that's why we work on our palm oil campaigns, because we don't want to see a loss of orangutans. I just can't imagine a world that doesn't have orangutans. And so we're not going to let that happen, and we don't think anybody else will either.
That's a really good point. So climate change will see a longer period of warmer days across Victoria and days of extreme heat increasing. What impact will this have on your zoos, and do you have a plan for climate adaptation?
So there's a couple of different ways that the climate impacts. If you go back to our moral purpose, and you're going to imagine this, is what animals will the changing climate impact on? And there's a couple of really important species. One of them lives right here in Melbourne, and that's the grey-headed flying fox. They can't tolerate those really hot days. And on really, really hot days, which are usually in January, February, which is when they have all their babies in the roost space, They just can't tolerate that really hot weather. And so we are working with Parks Victoria to look at new sprinkler systems, to look at ways we can just try and help them deal with the hot weather. The other group of animals that I'm sure has come to your mind, Michaela, is the animals that live at very high altitudes. So mountain pygmy possums, frogs that live at very high altitudes. As our climate warms, those areas get smaller and smaller. And if your entire life cycle depends on being able to hibernate and live under snow, and we warm the climate so there's no snow, obviously that has a huge impact. And so we are seeing a number of species in trouble because of the changing climate. And of course, the third group of species that are impacted by the changing climate is us, humans, you and me. And so what is a fun day at the zoo when it's 25 degrees is not a fun day at the zoo when it's 42 degrees. In fact, it's pretty horrible. So we're working on, we still don't think you're going to visit when it's 42 degrees. But what we're working on is making sure that we have more trees, we have more water, we have environments that are kinder to people at about 30 degrees, because those are the ones we're going to have a lot of. The 42, you're all going to stay home, I'm sure of that. But it's those days between 30, 35 that we still want you to have a great time at the zoo. And so we're looking at a whole lot of things we can do around the gardens, at the trees we plant, at the shade we create. And if you came in this summer, you would have found giant misters. And the kids just love standing in front of them, screaming and running around. So we'll keep doing things like that as well, just to make people a little bit more comfortable as it gets hotter. And I'm going to give you one more tip as well on climate change. As we rehabilitate areas for wildlife, we are now looking at the kind of trees and plants we should plant for a 5-degree warmer climate. So it's no good thinking that it's not coming and just keep planting as if it's always going to be the same. So we are already thinking about what it means to be climate ready for the future.
That's really fascinating. I wouldn't have even thought about planning ahead and with all the infrastructure around the zoos and that sort of stuff. That's so interesting to me.
Yeah, well, it's a big risk. You know, we really do rely on people coming and visiting us, and we use that money to be able to pay for the work we do around fighting extinction and looking after animals in emergencies. And so we have to keep thinking about how we make you comfortable and that you have a great day when you're here.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to aspiring female leaders or those females who doubt their self-worth in terms of leadership, as someone as successful as you are?
Well, I think leadership's just an interesting thing. It's a skill set, and public speaking is a skill set. And we tend to think that some people are just born with this, right? And they're good at it and the rest of us aren't. Well, it's not like that. These are skills you can learn. And so doing what you're doing, being brave and taking a chance, I'm sure you found when you've reached out to people, most of us are actually quite nice. And we're not really as scary as you expected. And so I would be encouraging, especially young females who are coming up in leadership, to, one, work hard on your skills. And I'm always a big fan of when they have a leadership for women, I don't want to go to that one. I want to go to the leadership for men, because I want to learn what they're learning. I want to just go to the MBA that everyone does. And so I would really encourage you to study hard at school, study hard at uni, choose a topic. I studied civil engineering. And so I went straight into an environment that was very male dominated. And I learned pretty early on how to hold my own in a debate. I was probably as scary as most of the guys were the whole way through uni. I did an MBA. So keep studying, keep putting yourself out there. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You can ask someone to come and talk to you and they can say, sorry, I'm busy. That's the worst thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, but having said that, there's also very bad things that do happen. And so being wide awake, pay attention to your environment, surround yourself with people who trust and believe in you. And you will find there's lots of them. There's really good people out there who will be encouraging you to step up as a leader. And practice with things that don't matter too much. You know, be the leader of the hockey team or play netball. Or I played sport the whole way through my life and I'm terrible at it. And it never mattered because it taught me about being a team player. It taught me about leadership in different ways. And it also taught me to be a good follower, because no one's ever making me a sports captain. But I don't always have to be the leader of everything. We all have to be, that's another skill that I think is incredibly important and we don't talk about a lot, which is how to be a really good follower or a really good second in command. And sometimes if you're wanting to be a leader, work hard on just being a really good second in command. You get that right, everyone's going to look at you and go, oh, she was great. Let's get her to run the next project.
Yeah, that's some great advice. I know I'll take some of that on board. So do you believe that environmental leadership needs to become a part of all leadership?
Now, you think I'm going to say yes, don't you?
Maybe.
Well, I'm going to say no. Because I think we need to choose the things we're going to be passionate about in life. And someone asked me today about social justice. And I don't know much about social justice. That's not something I've ever been very good at. A young friend of mine is working on artificial intelligence in the Defense Force and killer robots. I know nothing about killer robots, but am I glad she's doing it? Absolutely. And so I think there's probably a whole lot of different things that we can be passionate about. I reckon as long as 20% of us still care about the environment, that's probably enough. And some others can think about job creation and the economy. I don't think we have to be this polarized that you're either all in or all out. And that makes this a very binary discussion. If we think about the Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations, there's 17 of them. Now, I can't expect everyone to be good at all 17. Ours is number 15, life on earth, life on land. So we're really good at life on land. Do I care about poverty? Yes, but not as much as I care about life on land. And so my long answer is, I think we need people who are interested in different things. I think we all have an interest in this planet and this environment being good, but let's work on that in different ways, because I think that's where we'll really get ahead.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I think I agree with you. I think diversity is really important for humanity to progress. So
yeah, and if we did, if we just looked after the environment and let jobs fall apart, well, that wouldn't be great. And if poverty got worse because we were looking after the environment, that wouldn't work. And so we need to, really, like a society, have people focusing on many different things.
Yeah. So what is the hardest part of managing Zoos Victoria?
There's no hard part. I love everything about my job. So probably, if I have to, the times that I cry, if that was the question, would be when we have a big failure in something that means a lot. So the first batch of bawball frogs eggs that we got into captivity were compromised, and these little tadpoles emerged, and then one by one they died. And then when we lost that whole batch, we all cried a little bit. But the next year we did better, and the next year we did better. And now we have 500 frogs down the back, and they're doing really well. But it's those moments where things are, there seems like there's a lot at stake. And I guess the hardest part is that saving species is difficult. None of them would be in trouble if they were easy. If they were like seagulls and really robust, they'd be overabundant. And so the hard part is working together, getting lots of people excited about saving species, and then getting the right groups of people together.
Yeah, definitely. So what has been a particular highlight at working at Zoos Victoria in your time as CEO? If there hasn't been much hard, what's been the best?
I seriously love when we upgrade an enclosure. And so there's an environment that animals live in, and we know we can always do more and it can always be better. And we manage to get the money from someone, and then we've got a great plan. And then we take those animals and we put them into this new environment. And that day when you open the door and they come out. So I guess probably one of the highlights would be when we moved the 3 male gorillas from here at Melbourne Zoo down to Werribee Open Range Zoo. And here they were in a little space, really difficult. Down there we have this incredible, huge enclosure where they can stay far away from each other. They can see each other. They don't have to be next to each other. And when you load them in the truck and drive them down there and then open the door and they come out in this new environment and just explore it, that's the most incredible feeling. Or the similar one for a fighting endangered for a threatened species like those ones behind me. I'm pointing the wrong way. Can't do it. Those ones. The helmeted honey eaters. I've had the opportunity of standing in the wild with a little bird in my hand and then being able to open my hands and release a helmeted honey eater back into the wild. And there's only 250 of these little birds in the wild. And to actually be able to do that, to take all that work and all that heartache and everything we've done and put it into this one little bird and then open your hands and let it go. That's the stuff that just makes my job absolutely worth doing.
That's so cool and eye-opening. That's amazing to get to experience that. So I have 2 more questions for you if we're not too short on time. Awesome. My next question for you is, what is something that most people don't know about Zoos Victoria?
So one of the things people really don't know is the work we do for injured animals. So people know what we're doing to fight extinction because we talk about that quite a lot. And maybe in the bushfires, people got to see a little bit of that work we did around caring for koalas. But every day people bring injured animals to us. And so we run 3 great hospitals at our zoos. And what we do is we treat injured animals. And we often learn a lot about what injures them, as well as diseases. So we offer a service around disease surveillance for native wildlife, because one of the things we do is we see lots of animals that are sick, and we can understand why they're sick. So people think of us as being very much about the piece that people visit, the fabulous day you have getting to see and learn about animals. They don't always think about us as wildlife hospitals serving the whole community of wildlife in Victoria and the first place that a sick or injured animal will come. Now, did you know that? Because that may have been a terrible thing people don't know.
No, I didn't know. I knew little bits and pieces, but not too much. So it's good to shed light on it for everyone. Now, my last question, I think it would be inappropriate if I didn't ask you because of your career, but which animal is your favorite and why?
It's such a funny question. I have 2 answers. So one is I actually end up loving individuals because I have this unique opportunity of knowing animals not as a species, but actually each individual. And so while I love elephants, I really love Marley, our little elephant that you'll remember because you were about probably 6 or 7 when she was born. Mm-hmm. And Marley was born here at Melbourne Zoo. I got to see her within half an hour of her birth. She was so little and goofy. So I love Marley the elephant, not all elephants. Mm-hmm. And I love specific gorillas, not all gorillas. So like Makoko was the first gorilla I worked with and I adored him. But if I have to choose a species, then I end up with wombats because they're just so solid and so uncontested in the world. They move through the world almost oblivious of us. You know, if you've ever sat on a lawn and had a wombat come out and move around you, they just don't care that we're there. They feel like a timeless animal that just doesn't care about us. And I love that. You know, we're almost irrelevant. And my second thing, well, there's 2 other things I love about wombats. One is that when they're little, they don't have a lot of behaviors. If they're stressed, they hiccup. So they'll sit, when you're holding them, they'll sit there going, and then as soon as they're not stressed anymore, they just fall asleep. So they're either asleep or hiccuping. And if they're awake and not stressed, they generally run around in circles, just like little crazy things. So I love that about wombats. And my final wombat fact is they love sunsets. So wombats will always move to the highest point where they can watch the sunset, which is like deeply romantic that an animal would move up to the high point just to watch the sunset. So any animal that loves sunsets and doesn't care about humans is an animal that I love.
That's such a good answer. I've never heard someone say wombats before, so I really like it a lot. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me. I know you're very busy and I learnt so much. I could keep talking to you for hours, but thank you so much.
It's been wonderful, Michaela, and congratulations on this project and good luck with interviewing other people. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank you.